Recording? Okay. All right. Welcome to our Planning Commission meeting. Today is Thursday, July 7th. It is 6:30 p.m. We will start. I am Maren Patterson. I am the commissioner, but we'll start this meeting with our chair and co-chair are out for the meeting. So we need a motion to have someone be the acting chair. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we elect Maren Patterson to be our acting chair tonight.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Wonderful. Okay. We will move on with our meeting this evening. Just for the public, thank you for being here. We're always grateful to see people attending our meetings and participating in this. Just some reminders. Please, will you please silence your cell phones if you have them? And if you do need to take a call, we ask that you step out in the hallway to do that. We do have agendas for you so that you can see what we'll be discussing tonight. And you will have an opportunity to make a comment on an agenda item that you're here to speak about. We ask that you, when the public comment portion is open, you come to the podium and state your name and address into the microphone for the record, because this meeting is being recorded. And we will discuss that further when that time comes. So I'll just introduce the commission. I am Maren Patterson. We also have Commissioner Hacker, Commissioner Malkiewicz, Commissioner Richards, and Commissioner Ney with us. Sorry. And we will start with our business items. So approval of minutes. We have 2 minutes from May 19th and June 2nd. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those meeting minutes?
Yes.
And we made a few just slight changes in the pre-meeting. Are there any changes or corrections that you would like made to the minutes? Okay. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes from May 19th, 2022 and June 2nd, 2022 with a few administrative corrections that we made in our pre-meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to our conflicts of interest. Do any of the commission members have a conflict of interest with the agenda items this evening?
No.
No.
No, neither do I. Okay. Approval of findings of facts. We have 1 findings of facts for Addison Vista subdivision. Has everyone had a chance to review that?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion we approve the Addison Vista subdivision finding of facts as a conditional use permit.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Moving on to our conditional use permit this evening, we have Paris RV. Is the applicant here tonight? Okay, great. First, we'll have a presentation by staff.
So Paris RV is seeking to amend their conditional use permit that they have at 71 East Edison. As it is right now, their conditional use permit allows them to service their RVs. So they're working to consolidate the lots seen here, and also allow like storage of RVs to display their RVs and sell them. They're planning to demolish the buildings that are here. It's highlighted in the blue. They're going to demolish those and replace it with the parking lot to display their RVs. The property is just outside the transit-oriented development zone. According to City Code, TOD improvements must be made along Main Street. This includes 5.5 feet of curb and tree wells and a 10-foot sidewalk minimum. And it also requires the trees must be planted every 50 feet. Because the property is also, because it's in the CD zone, the applicant is also required to do 10 feet of landscape buffering to the east of that sidewalk. The applicant doesn't have to follow TOD sidewalk requirements for Edison Avenue and Fireclay Avenue. That's just along Main Street. Along Edison and Fireclay, they just have to do regular CD zone improvements. So the property just to the east of where we're talking about, 71 East Edison, that's where Paris RV currently like fixes RVs and stuff. So they're seeking to consolidate these lots. And the red lines in this picture kind of show what lines would be removed, and it would just be one big lot. And the address would be 71 East Edison. Here's just a picture of what it looks like right now, looking south from Fireclay Avenue. Whoa. So there's not a sidewalk there, and it's fenced off and kind of run down a little bit. And there's another picture of the other building, the other part of the building. This is a site plan that was first submitted. It doesn't reflect the changes that we're proposing to require, so that's going to have to be updated before anything is approved. But staff recommends approval with the following conditions that are listed in the staff report.
Great. Any questions for staff?
I have a quick question, Mr. Rio. Can you go back to the picture of Edison where there was a chain link fence? Yep, and it says no parking anytime.
Mm-hmm.
Is that city ordinance? There's no parking anytime there?
No, that just looks like a personal sign that somebody stuck up on the fence.
So on-street parking will be allowed with this change?
Well, you said on-street parking?
Would be
I don't-
allowed with this, if this applicant was,
I don't think there's room
I think there's room for it.
Yeah, it's
there's
just,
a
yeah.
shoulder there.
I don't think, when I walked it, I didn't notice a shoulder there. There's not really room to park like that.
If parking on street is not allowed, the city will sign it for red curb it. Otherwise, if you can fit your car there.
Safely.
And typically, I think there are requirements like on a certain distance from an intersection that you can't park cars. Isn't that correct, Jared? Yeah. So I don't anticipate cars being parked there. That's really close to that intersection. So I don't anticipate them being allowed to park there.
And I guess from what Mr. Hall said, this is not changing the current condition there.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. At this time, we will have the applicant come forward. Hi, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Would you state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, Dave Frampton, 402 South, 10 West, Farmington, Utah, 84025.
Thank you so much. On the screen, we had can we put up the conditions? Great. Have you had an opportunity to review the 8 conditions?
Yes,
And will you be able to comply with those?
yes.
Great. Do you have any additional information that you would like to give the commission?
I don't think so.
No?
Yeah, pretty straightforward,
Yeah.
pretty simple.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will open this agenda item for public comment. If there's anyone that would like to speak to this agenda item, we ask that you come and state your name and address in the mic for the record, as well as keep your comments to 3 minutes. And please remember to not repeat maybe comments or information. If you do have a question or something that comes up in your comments, we will address those things with staff or the applicant after we close the public comment portion. So if there's anyone that would like to make a public comment on this agenda item. No? Okay, seeing. Oh, you do. Great. Thank you, Seth.
So we got an email today. I guess he had a few questions about the whole project. His name is Paul Burrows. His address is 11 West Gilbride Avenue. It says, greetings. I'll skip that part. His questions start with, what does conditional use approval actually mean for Murray City and for BD Paris LLC? Does it mean temporary use until something more conducive to the Burke Transit District area can be planned and built? Is this new parking for RVs in addition to or replacement for the current RV parking across the street from Deseret Industries farther to the south on Main Street? From the plan provided in the commission's mailings, it appears that the RVs will not be moved in and out of for the new parking by using a Main Street access. Is this the case? Will RVs still be moved in and out of the current RV parking further south by continuing to use Main Street? What type of fencing or wall do you intend to build along Main Street? Will this add or detract from the Burke Hill I think he's referring to the TOD zone, using tall chain link fencing with barbed wire rolls along the top, or by building an actual wall or installing more decorative tall black iron fencing? What kind of landscaping do you anticipate along Main Street? How are your RVs shipped to your facility and offloaded to the parking areas? Main Street already gets very high traffic, not just from passenger vehicles, but also by buses, semi-trucks, car carriers for the State Street auto dealerships, and heavy trucks hauling dirt, etc. Thank you for your considerations.
Great, thank you. Okay, there's no,
I'm sure. There was an email
yeah, that was
that's in the record.
that was included in our packet.
I also got a phone call yesterday. Yesterday, if somebody, he just wanted to know if there's going to be more traffic along Main Street. So I kind of showed him, I talked him through the plan that there's two accesses, one on Fireclay Avenue, one on Edison. So neither is on Main Street. I assume there will be more traffic on Main Street during construction or demolition, but he seemed okay with it once he found out the two accesses weren't on Main Street.
Okay. I'm going to close the public comment portion for this. And Seth, do you just want to quickly address any of those?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one, he asked if it's just temporary. That the answer is no. They own the property. So once this is approved, this is what will be there, as far as we know. It's going to be additional parking. Like I said, the accesses will not be on Main Street, so they'll be to the north and south side. And I don't know about what type of fencing is planned to be built.
Do you know what is allowed in the CD zone? Like he'd be able to put what's allowed right in that zone.
It's pretty loose, like
Yeah.
what is allowed. Mhm.
So that it includes razor wire.
No. No, wait, no razor wire.
No.
Okay.
Well, isn't there some stipulation that it has to be so far back from the curb and gutter?
10 feet. It has to be behind that landscape.
So it has to be 10 feet back from the landscape, and it can only be up to 8 feet tall?
It has to be at the back of the landscape.
Okay. And can stipulation on how tall it can be as well, right?
7.
7 in the commercial zone? Okay.
Also, the last question was how RVs are shipped to the facility and offloaded. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, and I think this is like a repair, right? And
It
storage.
used to be repaired, now it will be sales and
It can also, the part that's going to be consolidated, the west side of the property will be used for display and sales.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions for staff after the public comments? No? Unless you want to address anything with the applicant, I don't. No? Okay.
Thank you.
Then I'll bring it back for further discussion for the commission or a motion.
I would just state that I believe that the opportunity for them to use the staff parking as cells and display parking, I think it's a very real likelihood that would take place. So I would like to see that there's clear delineation between the staff parking and the cells and display parking, and that there's no crossover between the two.
And that's a really common standard, I think, that we implement in lots of other parking or car auto sales lots. So I think that that's a reasonable requirement. Would you like to add a condition
Yeah.
for that?
Yeah, I'd add a condition.
And just, I guess we're just delineating between employee parking and display parking
Correct.
in the signing. Okay, in the striping.
Madam Chair, I just feel the need that I should respond to one of the residents' comments from 2 weeks ago. He was stating some concern that he felt like what's going in here isn't consistent with the TOD zone. And I think we've kind of indirectly addressed that, but this is not the TOD zone. And as much as we could agree or disagree, that's not exactly our first priority, our first wish to go into the property. Maybe we weren't hoping for a parking lot. It's legal. It's legal within the CD zone. So
Yeah, and I mean, they're obviously expanding their business and having a lot of success. So that's their ability to do that. So any other discussion? Okay, is there a motion for this agenda item?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit amendment to allow RV sales and storage at the property address 71 East Edison Avenue, subject to conditions 1 through 8, with the addition of condition number 9 that says, that'll state, staff parking and parking for display and sales shall be clearly delineated and striped as such.
Great. I have a motion by Commissioner Ney to approve the conditional use permit to allow RV sales and storage at the property address 71 East Edison Avenue, subject to the 8 conditions with the addition of the 9th condition as read into the record. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, point of order, do we need to get clarification from the applicant that they can abide by all the conditions prior to voting, or is that not needed? Because we added a condition and didn't ask if they, well, I don't know.
I don't
It's a long
think,
way to that microphone. It's the conditions. We as a kind of as a practice as a commission, you've always asked that of the applicants, but you set the conditions as the commission. So if they don't abide by the conditions, then the use permit is invalid. So if they have objections to Travis's condition, they can raise them with staff, and we can come back. But you could probably ask Brett and Dory to raise their hands and say we're okay with that, and they would probably do so. I'm just going to guess.
And then also before, another point, Commissioner Ney, you mentioned 71 East Edison Avenue, but there's 2 other addresses too. We need to make sure that those are set.
It's different in our packet. Sorry,
yeah,
we
it's
were
not-
reading off of our packet.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And not
yeah.
off
So
of the
it's
screen.
it's also 71 East Edison and 4303 and 4337 South Main Street.
Do you need us to make a new motion?
No, just
Okay.
amend it and say those that you're amending your motion to include those
I'd
properties.
like to amend my motion to include the 2 additional properties you just read into the record.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, the applicants shook their head yes.
Yes, I saw that. Is there a second on this motion? Did we already ask for a second?
No, but I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Richards. Can we call for a vote?
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Is that everyone? Okay. Motion is approved. Okay, we will move on now to agenda item number 5, Lambourne Estates. Is the applicant here? What's your name? Wonderful. Okay, we'll move forward with our presentation.
Okay, so the next item is the applicant, Mark Lambourne, is seeking to subdivide this lot in South Naylor Lane into a flag lot. This is an aerial of the property. It's in the R18 zone, which flag lot subdivisions are allowed in this zone. Both lots that are created would have to conform to the setback requirements of the R18 zone. Here's a plan of what it will look like once it's subdivided. The 28 feet will be an access easement, and that'll just allow the person in the back lot to access their home back there. There's going to be 4 feet of landscaping on each side of the access as well. So city code requires that the front lot has a minimum square footage of 8,000 feet. The rear parcel must have 125% of this, which is 10,000 square feet. The applicant meets both of these requirements. They haven't proposed a home yet for the back lot. They'll have to do a separate submittal for that. But when they do, it has to conform with the R18 setback requirements, which are listed on this slide. Here's a picture of what it looks like from the street. And then here's what it looks like from the backyard. It's a pretty big area, and it complies with all the size requirements that the city has. Staff is recommending preliminary and final subdivision approval based on the conditions listed in the staff report.
Any questions for staff? Okay. Thank you, Seth. If we could have the applicant come forward.
Good evening. Mark Lamborn, 1017 Countryville Lane, Taylorsville.
Thanks for being with us. Have you had an opportunity to review the conditions of approval?
I have.
And you'll be able to comply with those?
No problem.
Great. Is there any further information or presentation you'd like to give the commission about your project?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. Then you can have a seat. We will open this agenda item up for public comment. If there's anyone that would like to comment about this item, you can do so now. Were there any emails or?
I got 2 phone calls about it. One was from, let me see if I can find it real quick. One was from Eric Schroeder at 4910 South Naylor Lane. I think he's right in front of him. He just said he was opposed to it because the road is pretty small and he was worried about parking cars there and the traffic of getting in and out. And then I had one other person from the street call, but I didn't get their name and they were also opposed for the same reasons.
Okay. Thank you, Seth. I will close the public comment portion. Do you want to address either of those concerns?
Yeah, so applicant is required to dedicate about 16 feet of his property to be for the city to be able to widen the street eventually. So I know that doesn't solve all the issues, but he is complying with all the lot size requirements that we have.
Yeah. And I mean, there will be plenty of parking on both properties, just like any other house or property in the area. So any questions for staff?
No.
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission grants preliminary and final subdivision approval for flag lot subdivision for the proposed Lamborn flag lot subdivision located at 4905 South Naylor Lane, subject to the 9 conditions.
Great. So I have a motion by Commissioner Richards to grant preliminary and final subdivision approval for the flag lot subdivision for the proposed Lamborn flag lot subdivision located at 4905 South Naylor Lane, subject to the 9 conditions. Is there any discussion on that motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Commissioner Malkiewicz. Okay, we can take a vote.
Okay. Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Motion is approved. Good luck with your project. We will move on to agenda item number 6, Jefferson Park number 3 subdivision. Is the applicant here this evening? Yes. Okay. Then we will start with our presentation.
Okay, thank you. This request is for Jefferson Park number 3, preliminary and final subdivision approval. And it is located at 6560 South and approximately 130 West. The applicant is J&G Investments and Jonathan Rudd is representing J&G Investments. This property is accessed off of Fayette Avenue and 130 West, which is a current existing stub street. And it was zoned, the zoning was changed in March of this year by the City Council from R18 to R210. And this is actually our first R210 subdivision. So this is pretty exciting for me. So section 17.112 is the R210 zoning. When it was changed in the text and the zoning was changed earlier this year by the City Council, it does allow for twin homes to be individually owned. And so we don't have to have rentals. It does allow owner-occupied units. This is the existing property. As you can see, it's vacant property. It is actually, there is no access on Jefferson Street. It is accessed off of Fayette. Previously, the owner owned the two dwellings that are on Jefferson Street, and he has remodeled them, and they are turned out fabulous. They are almost 100 years old, I think. The structures are really old, but he remodeled these and actually sold this and has retained the back 1.5 acres. So the back 1.5 acres of the R2, which is the R210 zone, they have proposed an 8-lot subdivision with 4 twin homes. As you can see, the homes share a common boundary line, which goes between the home. So each lot has to be at least 10,000 square feet for the twin home and 5,000 per individually owned lot. And also they have to meet all the zoning regulations of the R112, R210, which are 40 feet wide at the setback, and the front and rear 25 feet setbacks. Side is minimum of 8 with a total of 18 on each side. I should go to my graph here, so I'm not just fumbling here. Corner side yards is 20, and but there's no corners on this particular subdivision, so that would not apply. And then they do have to provide 2 off-street parking spaces per unit. I'm going to go back to this subdivision plat. Lot number 8 is a little unique in that it has up on the north end, you'll see the stem where there is a retaining area, which is included with lot number 8. So the owner of lot number 8 will have to maintain that area and either mow it, or they could have gravel there, but it cannot be hard surfaced. And that will be a recorded easement, storm easement across that area in favor of Murray City. So Murray City can actually clean out the storm drain system. But that will be part of lot 8. And so the owner of that will be recorded on the plat. So there shouldn't be any issues with that. All of the lots, I did say, were at least 5,000 square feet, up to, I think, 9,900 is the biggest lot. And this plan shows that there's 2 different plans for the homes, for the twin homes, building A and building B, kind of alternated them there. And I have included some renderings of the different styles. They are similar. You'll notice that the garages are adjacent to each other. So this actually works really well as far as the driveways and drive approaches coming off the street. So it's shared, which actually they can reduce the width a little bit, which is going to be necessary because the subdivision is quite tight in the cul-de-sac. They will be able to meet all the improvements as far as the utilities and street lights, curb gutter, sidewalk. I didn't mention that this is a public road with 50-foot right-of-way and then 5-foot park strip and landscape and sidewalk. Excuse me, sidewalk and landscaping strip. So it does meet all the city public road improvements. Let's see. So, all right, there are 2 styles. It's very similar. And then I just included the floor plans with it. We'll have a basement, the main floor, and then an upper floor. Let me go back to this. Also, each lot, any new development over 1 acre is required to meet LID standards for retainage. And each lot will retain its own water. And then the excess will be in that retainage area upon lot 8. So they have incorporated that to meet the state and city LID requirements. Based on all of the information, staff is recommending approval, preliminary and final approval for the Jefferson Place number 3, 8-lot subdivision, based on the 9 conditions as outlined. We did receive 1 email from a neighbor included in your packet that was opposed to this. He just wanted single-family homes, which the R210 zone allows for twin homes. And other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. Would any improvements happen on 130 West?
No, that's currently a public street. Mm-hmm. And since that is not actually part of their subdivision, well, actually just up to, you can see that line right there. Basically where the dashed line is, where you can see. But beyond that, the existing 130 West, they would not have to do any more additional improvements. Just what is actually part of their property.
That's an interesting question. Now I want to ask other questions. I actually went up there and saw this property, but it's been, I guess, almost 4 weeks,
Here,
so I
that
forget.
actually shows it.
Are there
better.
sidewalks? Are there sidewalks for the existing houses on 130 West?
There are. I believe so. Let me go to my picture here.
And I understand why this property wouldn't be required to, there aren't sidewalks. I understand why this.
Yes, there are. You can see in this upper right photo. You can just
But go back
barely
to
see
that
the
house, the
edge
picture of
there.
the house.
That one's on Jefferson.
That was in Jefferson.
Okay.
That was just a,
Okay. So then in theory, these sidewalks would match the sidewalks going in.
Yes.
They'll be continuous.
yes. This is actually better. That's actually a better show side of that. Any other questions?
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. If we could have the applicant come forward.
Hi,
Hello.
my name is Jonathan Rudd, 14899 South Blue Springs Cove, Bluffdale, Utah. I've been here before, and we went through the painstaking process of getting our 210 approved. And we're very grateful for Murray City and all their efforts. And Ms. Nixon, we're just grateful for everyone and their help. As I had committed previously, we could have, once it's approved, you can do different uses, such as you could do something that's more prone to rental, but that's not what we're committed to doing. We think that there is a very large need for twin homes, and we promise that they would be quality and beautiful and serve a great purpose for Murray City as they are some other cities. And so we had committed to that. We've provided, you've seen some of the renderings, and I think this will just be very beautiful and a great use of that land. You've also seen what kind of work we do just in the pictures in the dilapidated structures that were there. They were completely inhumane, and we rehab those, and they're beautiful now, and wonderful people living there and owning it. We don't own that anymore, but that was the process of us obtaining all of the land. It couldn't be subdivided, so we had to buy all of that, just so you know. We had asked if that could be subdivided, and we were told no. So we bought it to rehab it so that it was beautiful, even though we weren't required to do that, but we really wanted to make sure that we could develop this land behind as well. We knew it needed to be beautified and improved, and we've done that, and we look forward to doing that for these 8 lots. And with them being zoned now the way that it is, it's much more prone to ownership of people that would need to live there. And as you were told, these are units that are 3 levels, a basement, a main floor, and an upstairs. So we are doing all we can to make sure that they meet the needs of Murray City and its residents. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to take them, and appreciate your time.
Great. I know it's not on the screen, but have you had an opportunity to review the conditions of approval?
Yes.
And you'll be able to comply with those?
Yes, we
Okay.
believe there won't be any issues with that.
Great. Any commission or questions from the commission for the applicant? Okay, thank you
Okay,
so much.
Thank you so much.
At this time, we will open this for public comment. Again, if you have a comment and you would like to address your questions into the microphone, and then when we close public comment, we will address any of those questions or issues that you brought up. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this agenda item? No? Okay. I will close the public comment portion and bring it back for discussion or a motion.
Madam Chair? I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission approve a preliminary and final subdivision approval for the Jefferson Place number 3 subdivision on the property address 6560 South, 130 West, subject to conditions 1 through 8.
Okay. Our screen says 1 through 9.
1 through
It is 1 through 9 on,
Okay.
on the staff report.
Okay.
1 through
Skip the
9.
number, but it is 1 through 9.
Okay.
I'd like to amend my motion. Conditions 1 through 9.
Thank you. All right. I have a motion by Commissioner Malkiewicz to approve preliminary and final subdivision for the Jefferson Place number 3 subdivision on the property address 6560 South, 130 West, subject to the 9 conditions. Is there discussion on that motion or a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
And a second by Commissioner Hacker. Okay, we can take a vote.
Okay. Ms. Commissioner Makavich,
Yes.
Commissioner Nay,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
and Chair Patterson.
Yes. All right. Motion is approved. Good luck with your project. I think we're all excited to see those houses. Okay. Moving along. Another subdivision review, agenda item number 7, Murray Square Retail Subdivision. Is the applicant here?
They're not here.
They're not.
They had a conflict tonight.
Okay.
Oh, actually. No, okay. Okay. No, he had a conflict tonight,
Okay.
so it's up to you if you want to proceed with it or not.
I'll ask the commission. I personally feel like we have seen this applicant and this application and done subdivisions previously. So I'm fine moving forward with it, but how does the rest of the commission feel?
We've seen it over and over and over and over and over again.
This is like the, whatever, third or
Like
fourth.
round number
I think it might be the 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Okay, then we will move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This request is on behalf of 900 East Ivy Place LLC. Justin Kimball is the applicant. And this is for preliminary and final subdivision for commercial subdivision for the properties at 4652, 4664, 4672, and 4678 South on 900 East. You're very familiar with this property. This property is adjacent to 900 East, as shown in the highlighted there. It's in our commercial zone. Excuse me, it's in our mixed use, MCMU. I'm so used to the CD, excuse me. MCMU, formerly the MU zone. They did receive approval for a master site plan approval back in January of this year. The subject property, I'm going to show you some photos of it first. On 9th East is under construction. It's coming along well. The upper left corner is actually the back part of the property where there's the residential units. And the other 3 photos are all along 900 East, which is more the subject property that we're talking about tonight. So in May of last year, the Planning Commission approved a 3-lot subdivision as shown here, which is called the Murray Square subdivision. In meeting with their potential tenants and arranging leases, et cetera, the applicant's property owners realized that they needed to subdivide lot 2 so that they could make it easier for them to lease or sell or whatever they want to do. And so we're talking about amending lot number 2 of the Murray Square subdivision as shown here, and basically splitting it into 4 lots, making it Murray Square Retail Subdivision. So you've seen the master site plan, which was approved previously on the right side of this, the photo on the right side, the colored one, is the master site plan that was approved months ago. And then on the left side is the new subdivision proposal. They line up. It's just a matter of being able for them to sell or lease, etc. So nothing has changed as far as the master site plan. That still is binding for this property. And it just, again, as far as the connection, vehicle, pedestrian is all in the same. Parking is the same. The retail pads are the same. Here's a breakdown of the square footages. There is no minimum in the MCMU. So lot 201 will be about 41,000 square feet. The actual retail pad is 4,899. And then lot 2 is 24,077 square feet with a 4,800 square foot retail pad. And then lot 203, 24,335 square feet for the lot. And the pad site is 6,240. And then the last lot of 204 is 36,623. And the anticipated retail pad is 3,804. Lot 201 and lot 204 previously in the master site plan approval and an amended site plan approved drive-through for the 2 as shown. The upper lot and the lower lot have a drive-through. So based on all the information and the subdivision requirements, staff has reviewed it and found that this proposal meets our requirements and are recommending that the Planning Commission grant preliminary and final subdivision, amending lot number 2 of the Murray Square subdivision for the Murray Square retail subdivision on the properties listed above, subject to the 7 conditions.
Any questions for Susan? Pretty straightforward. Okay, thank you so much. Without the applicant here, we'll just move forward with the public comment portion. If anyone would like to make a public comment about this agenda item, they can come to the podium. And seeing none, I will close the public comment portion and bring it back for discussion or a motion.
Just a random question, and you're going to hate me. Can we just eliminate those drive-throughs?
At this point. Keep wishing, Travis.
No.
Okay, that's a clear answer.
Any other discussion? Okay.
I've been trying to decide if I should make my comment or not. So I've been racking my brain trying to decide if there's any downside to this, because it seems pretty straightforward. And I think we do it all across the city. The different businesses are subdivided. The only
As long as it
downside,
meets subdivision and zoning regulations, then yeah,
it's pretty standard.
yes.
So it's pretty standard. The only downside is if we have 4 separate properties in 20 years from now, when they come to us with a conditional use permit asking for a CUP in one of the stores, we can require them to come up to date with landscaping and requirements only on 1/4 of the property instead of the whole section.
Good point. That is true.
So it'll be piecemealed 30 years from now.
But we have such a good landscape plan already in place, and the ordinance is solid, and we're making the city more beautiful all the time.
And the people that buy these properties will be dedicated to Murray and will keep it up without us enforcing.
Right. Right.
That's the goal. If there's no further discussion, is there a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission grant approval amending lot number 2 of the Murray Square subdivision and preliminary and final subdivision approval for the Murray Square retail subdivision on the properties at 4652, 4664, 4672, and 4678 South 900 East, subject to conditions 1 through 7.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Hacker to grant approval amending lot number 2 of the Murray Square subdivision and preliminary and final subdivision approval for the Murray Square retail subdivision on the properties at 4652, 4664, 4672, and 4678 South 9th East, subject to the 7 conditions. Is there discussion on that motion?
No, but I'll second.
There's a second by Commissioner Nay. Okay, we can take a vote.
Commissioner Nay,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Makevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
and Chair Patterson.
Yes. All right, motion is approved. Moving on to our general plan and zone change amendment for the Lotus Company. Is applicant here this evening? Okay, great. We'll start with our presentation.
It's what everybody's here for tonight.
Yes, it is.
Yes. So, yes, thank you for that. This is a request from the Lotus Company for a general plan and a zone map amendment at 787 and 825 through 865 East 4800 South. This is whatever number I just said, 787, is the single family residence here on the west side of the property. The 825 to 865 is this office complex adjacent to 4800 South here. So as you'll see, the 787 is in the R18 zone, which allows for single family residences. And that's about it. There's some other caveats there, but typically just allows for a single family dwelling on the property. And then the GO, it allows for a multitude of office type uses. It allows for like architects, lawyers, real estate agents. It also includes like beauty services, like hair salons, things like that, and also massage parlors. So the request is to change that to RM15, which would allow up to 12 units per acre. I realized halfway through today that I didn't provide a comparison slide. So I'm just going to be doing this from my mouth. So, so some of the regulation differences. So, largely all of the front setback areas are all the same across the board. I think the GO allows for a 20-foot rear front yard setback, but the R18 and the RM15 would both be 25 feet. So there really wouldn't be a change there. In the GO zone, there is no rear yard setback unless it abuts single family residence. And then I believe it's 20 feet there as well. Height requirements for the existing GO. I'm going to go back here. For the existing GO and the R18 are 30 feet and 35 feet respectively. So GO is 30 feet when next to a single family residence and 35 for a single family residence. The proposed RM15 would allow that to go to 40 feet with approval by the Planning Commission. Otherwise, I believe it's 35 feet before if it's just run of the mill. And as I had mentioned, I haven't mentioned this actually. So it's 3.93 acres between the two lots. The single family residence lot is 1 acre and the GO zone is 2.93 acres. So that gets you to your 3.93. So at the proposed 12 units per acre on the base density, that would allow for a maximum. I caveat that this is a maximum because this doesn't take into account any access roads or landscaping requirements, things like this. This would allow for up to 47 units. And that would be the maximum. Parking. So for the GO, that varies depending. It's typically about 1 for every 250 square feet of net usable office space, or 4 per 1,000 square feet. In the R18, it's a minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces. And then in the RM15, it's a requirement of 2.5 spaces per unit. So a little bit more than the R18 it requires. Let's see. One thing I did want to point out is there are apartments to the southeast. They are located in the RM10 zone, but I've been doing some calculations on density overall in the city, and this actually operates more closely to, it's built out at about 25 units per acre. So much higher than the 7 that's allowed. That would have just been a change in the zoning at some point in the past. So that already is operating at about a 25 unit per acre density. And then let's just go over real quick the future land use categories. Currently, the single family residence is on the future land use map as low density residential. And on the office, it's for office uses. So the general plan does encourage, when we're evaluating this, we look at the general plan and see if we can justify a change here or recommend for a change here. And there are a number of objectives in the general plan, specifically in the housing element. Objective 3, encourage housing options for a variety of age, family size, and financial levels. Supporting housing, different housing types, including townhomes, row homes, and duplexes. And let's see. Also in the land use and urban design element, Objective 9, provide a mix of housing options and residential zones to meet a diverse range of needs. We always kind of speak to a mix of housing integrated into neighborhoods. so that you have a healthy mix of single family and multifamily mixed in together. And then lastly is the moderate income housing. So provide a diversity of housing through a range of types and development patterns to expand the moderate income housing options available to existing and future residents. We all know that there is a severe housing shortage here in the Valley, in the state, nationwide. So we do encourage additional housing in this area. So with that, actually, I do want to touch on a couple things. I did receive a couple phone calls from property owners that were concerned. They were more in support of the office building being converted and leaving the single family residence as is. That was pretty much what I got out of most of everybody. I did have a conversation with the resident that owns this property right here that would be surrounded on three sides. She did have concerns. She said she had reached out to Lotus. I relayed that information to Lotus to kind of reach out to her and have a conversation on, either how they're going to address things, if they're interested in purchasing that property, just having a conversation with that property owner as well. We did send out 110 public notices, and I received probably just a handful of calls, probably 4 or 5. And so, yes, that is pretty much it. So we are recommending, staff is recommending that the commission forward a positive recommendation for both the general plan and the zone map amendment for both of these properties. So, can I answer any questions at this point?
Can you help me? Because I can't find the number. I'm sure it's right here in front of me. The residential piece, how large is that?
1 acre.
1 acre. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
So could you go back to that map? And I mean, I guess we can't zoom out, but my understanding is that this geo is really kind of an island.
It is.
In this little part of the city, right?
This is, the only little geo right there.
Yeah.
So if this zone were to change, so this portion right here is owned by Salt Lake City.
Okay, that was my second question is, what is behind it?
So this is Salt Lake City. As odd as it is, they own.
Is the creek back there?
They have they have a water pipe that runs through Murray City.
Okay.
And actually some people that live on 4800 South actually get their water from Salt Lake City and not Murray City or any other.
So that, the property line goes there, and then that would be the same.
Correct. Yeah. This would maintain as is.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't anticipate that probably ever changing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Salt Lake City would ever get rid of that piece of property.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Small, I'm not sure if my question or discussion is appropriate now or later. So tell me what's appropriate. So I live in that area.
Yes.
So I had probably the same feelings. Most people oh no, density. And then the stop, Lisa, read through it, think about it. It's always been weird that Geo's there. What is the argument for splitting the two? I mean, I feel like we all are trying to buffer ourselves from any kind of density. And so I'm assuming the argument would be not next to me. I want to keep that 1 acre there, but then that person could sell that 1 acre and do other things with it. I mean, we're kind of throwing that one person under the bus. I don't want it next to me, so you have to keep your acre. What's the argument?
So I know there was some of the other, one of the conversations specifically I remember is the resident was concerned about the trees along that property line. And if there's a way to maintain those. I told him that that's not really at this level. This is really just looking at the zoning specifically. We are, that was a lot of the conversation.
I guess my question also is, I'm grappling with it like everyone else.
Sure.
And I want to make sure we're trying to be fair to everyone. if we told them, if for some reason we decide to split it and say the GO could be rezoned, but the R1A couldn't be rezoned, I mean, that the intent would be for buffering. And what is the existing buffering that we have for the RM15 area? Would there be a built-in buffering that would already exist?
I don't think there is a specific buffer from single family in the RM15. Since Susan isn't looking at me in like, wait, calm down, don't say things. I believe that to be true. So.
So then we, as a community, are throwing that 1% of the bus, potentially saying, hey, you're our buffer. I don't know.
That's a potential there.
But that 1 acre piece of property is, you can't do anything with it. You can't flag lot it. You can't take any sort of drive down it. It is what it is.
I know. I drove it when it was for sale, looking at what we could do with it. It's a hard piece of, I mean, why I'm having that discussion to see if we're throwing someone unintentionally under the bus, or if it is a good move, or, I don't know.
Yeah.
Zach, a lot of the written comments that we got in our packet were concerned about, and I know that this is a site, like, once, if it changes and moves forward at the city council, that then you would move forward with like a site plan or what this would look like. But a lot of people are concerned about the traffic on this curve.
Yeah.
Does that impact future zoning?
So no, that would be more at a site plan. This would have to come before the planning. If the zones get changed, it would have to come before you guys as a conditional use, because multifamily, oddly, is a conditional use in the RM15 zone.
And
So you would have to see the project again, and it would get reviewed by the city engineer at that time, who does look at these kind of site, site obstacles.
restriction,
restrictions. And looks at where the best point for an access would be.
Okay.
I have seen preliminary plans. I try not to speak too broadly to them because they can change. But currently they have 2 points of access, one up at the north on this
So
property.
not on the curve.
Yeah, not on the curve, and then one down on a little bit further on the curve.
So I just want to throw a little gasoline on the fire here. Yeah, I live on the S curve of Vine Street. There are 3 separate streets that come into the S curve, and that volume wise, I don't know what the difference in traffic volume on Vine Street and 4800 South here, but I would guess Vine Street has more traffic. Vine Street's pretty busy, and you just don't see issues with it.
Yeah.
So fire on the flame. Well, let's discuss it. So Vine Street is more busy right now, but it won't be soon, because we have 400 people going in on the east side of us. We have 400 going on the west side of us, and now higher density here. So I'm worried about traffic too. But being on this commission, every item that comes in front of us has traffic concerns, because with growth, there's traffic. And we do traffic studies every time, and the studies usually tell us a grade, and then they tell us, well, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
They don't say no to the project. They say if it's a poor grade, we'll widen the road or put a turn signal in or put a light or put I don't know.
Sure.
So,
and there's always so I'll just add to this as well, that the existing zoning as it stands right now for a GO could, if somebody were to redevelop this property into an office building, multiple office buildings.
Yeah, the GO zone that we have by the freeway has big, well,
that's where my mind went. If there's 40
Develop more
businesses
offices.
here that were thriving, we could easily have 4 customers per visit per business coming in and out every
Correct.
hour. Right now, they're
It
not
just so
thriving.
happens that this is running at a very low vacancy or a very high vacancy rate.
So technically,
Today it is.
Today it is.
But technically, 46 residents would have less traffic than 46 businesses
Typically.
if all businesses were occupied and thriving and doing
Correct.
well. So the traffic, although it's a huge concern to me,
Sure.
I don't know if I have a good argument for it because I don't know if it's going to be worse, except talking to someone else. They were saying the number of visits necessarily won't be worse. It'll be the timing because businesses would have people coming in and out all day and residents will have rush hour morning, rush hour evening. So it's going to increase traffic. But
And it would be at the site plan, like at the next level.
At the
If the
next level,
engineer
yeah.
decided we needed a traffic study, this needed to be looked at closely.
Typically,
it would be
I will
further in the process.
I will just say right off the bat, this probably won't require a traffic impact study. Typically, it's anything over 100
Unit.
units.
Okay.
Yep.
why RM15 and not RM10? I know that's not an answer, but
Applicant's choice.
Yeah, that's what the applicant has asked for.
I guess I'd throw that out there so that we have that discussion.
Sure.
Because it's what's property owner has some privilege. Like you could hate what I did in my house, but
Sure.
it's legal. Yeah.
So you'd probably get about 27, I'm assuming, units out of that.
RM10.
RM10.
3.93. So almost 28.
Little less than half.
Yep.
RM10 is nice.
Any other questions for staff?
I just make one comment that
Sure.
as long as I've lived in Murray, I don't know that I've ever noticed this development really being filled with patrons. However, I've patronized a couple different businesses within there. I don't know how many businesses are actually there, well, anymore, but could be at least a dozen. There's probably over 100 parking stalls. If and when all of those businesses were full, there was some significant traffic that they added to 4800 West South. So if 47 units would go into that area, I'm not sure that traffic would be much different than what it would be if this was actually full, and certainly less than if it was developed with large commercial buildings.
Yeah, no, like I said earlier, I think that it'll be similar visits per day, but the timing of the visits will be different. It'll be during rush hour. But
True.
I don't know if that trumps the idea of having people in our neighborhood that are going to live there and take care of the neighborhood versus businesses. Residential is more appropriate for the area than businesses. Just an amount of residential.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If we could have the applicant come forward.
Name and address.
Yes, please. Thank
Allie
you.
Platt, and it's 34 South, 600 East, Salt Lake City.
Great. Thanks for being with us. Obviously, you heard some of the discussion conversation. Is there any additional information you would like to give the commission about this request?
Yes. So our plan, can you go back to the site? Is that right? So where the 1 acre lot with the single family is on it, from a lot of the conversations that I had, both with community or with Jared, a lot of people are really concerned about what happens with that site. And I just want it to be abundantly clear that we're going to leave that single family home there.
Okay.
We have no intention of getting rid of that single family home. So
Well,
that single family home will stay. We may potentially use the back portion of the lot for some of the other development, but the single family will stay. And, site plans can change. And so I don't want to shoot myself in the foot. But I also talked to Jared about, we have 3-story townhomes, 2-story townhomes. And so if that section was more appropriate for a 2-story to kind of create that buffer, that's something that's easily done on our end. So I also wanted to bring up, because it was a concern that came up, was the entrance and the exit. I've heard multiple times that this is a dangerous corner, and me not having lived in Murray, I'm not sure. So I would love if there was a suggestion of where the safest entrance and exit is. That's something that, we're more than willing to look at and would like to know. So, I think that's all. If you guys have any questions, I don't know.
Is there any questions for the applicant?
again, I don't know I don't know if this comes at the appropriate time. If not, tell me to wait. So I wasn't going to be at the meeting 2 weeks ago, so I wrote this long letter. I tried to figure out how to participate. And my biggest suggestions or hopes was that you would, it says always left to the builder. It's your prerogative. You don't have to do this. There's no law saying you have to, but it's always nice when you'll team with the residents as much as possible, talk to them about their concerns. And like you said, put 2-story in closer to the residents or offer fencing around that one house. If they're interested, talk to the residents and see what might help them feel more comfortable about development, and then act on it when possible. That would be very, very nice.
Absolutely. We like happy neighbors, not angry ones.
Okay, thank you. All right. I would like to open this agenda item up for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please come to the podium. We will take all the public comments and then close the public comment portion and address any topics or concerns that you have brought up. So if anyone would like to speak to this.
I'm Joan Christensen, 1845 East Baywood Drive, Holiday 84117. My husband Brad and I own that little parcel that has the Lotus surrounding. So obviously from that particular illustration, you can see our concern relative to 270 degrees of development around us for, I don't know how long for that. It's obvious the impact that would have on our particular property. And so that's a personal issue. I recognize I'm not anti-development, but if I extend the thinking on this, let me shed light on what it's like to live at that particular property or at the one that was to the west that Lotus acquired. And although the schematic shows the curve on that roadway, it does not exactly show the elevation changes, which are of great concern because pulling out of our subject property, 815 or 813, it's a danger zone. It's very, very treacherous right there. I've gone to the city before suggesting that maybe there should be some mirroring, at least something, to reflect the flow of traffic that comes spilling off of Van Winkle, especially at the morning and night commute. And it comes at quite a pace. And that combination is pretty lethal. Our property is a legal duplex, so we have residents down in back. We have 4 parking spots covered for them. And so their entrance and exit is treacherous. And I do have hedges across the front to buffer that, but I religiously try to keep them back as much as possible for safety issues. Then adjacent, the newly acquired Lotus property to the west, this is an acre, but it also is a narrow acre. There's not much frontage. Ours has not much frontage either, but we're on, just maybe a third of what the adjoining property has. And I think that even as Lotus has talked about being sensitive to this issue, it's still not a concrete plan in terms of access points. So I'm concerned beyond my own personal worries about the safety of that in and out zone, if in fact they could even fathom using their newly acquired property as an easement for any build behind. That would be, I just can't tell you how narrow it is on that frontage, and I don't have those numbers there. So that's my great concern for the city at large. It's I'm not anti-development. I could maybe be persuaded to live between, 270 degrees of development for 2 years, but the personal impact is significant, and I don't really know why it's being covered that way, or covered. And ironically, even in the projected impact that it might have on our property, in June, on the 20th, I had an unauthorized worker come to our property and totally scalp the perimeter, weed whack everything, all the perennials, all the everything, and even up close to the property. And so when I went over and talked to the residents, they described the event, and I'm like, okay, let me think this through, connect the dots. And I thought, well, I think that Lotus sent somebody to weed whack the newly acquired property because it's growing and it's, And so I reached out, and Allie was very nice in responding, wanting to know what she could do. Didn't think at first that it was them, but then in pursuing it further, did verify that their landscape team had sent someone to the wrong address. So that's where I'm at right now in the personal impact of this, but it's really greater than that. If you really, you say you won't need a study on the traffic, but I just want to share that if the owner to the west, who was there for so many years, were able to speak tonight, he would also echo the concerns that I have about any access point in that zone at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Eric Schroeder. I live on that street in the southwest corner, Naylor. I didn't get a letter. I was wondering why I didn't get a letter, but my main concern is I chose to move to Murray 8 years ago. And the reason I did that is because of that beautiful dead-end street, Naylor Lane, and how quiet it appeared to be. In that 8 years, I've seen Murray City approving apartment complex after apartment complex after apartment complex after townhouses. And it's really concerning, and I really think it's taken away from the quality of life that brought me into Murray. I'm thinking of Lagoon on a Wednesday versus Lagoon on a Saturday. Who enjoys what more? I'm worried Murray's becoming that way. We just keep approving. Growth needed, as Jared mentioned. Where do we stop? Where do we end it? Downtown Salt Lake, is that what we're trying to be? I love the small town feel of Murray City, and this particular project concerns me, not just because of the extra traffic it'll bring, but the crime and the safety concerns. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. But yeah, it is on a steep curve, and quite often when I'm traveling down towards Miller Estates, there's a lot of traffic that pulls in there. And as you come over that hill, you get cut off a lot. So I got Miller Estates on that side. Behind me, I have the humongous Three Fountains west, and on the other side is humongous Three Fountains east. Across just west of here, this proposal, we have townhouses in there. Across the street, we have a brand new massive apartment complex going into the old Kmart, which is before mentioned. Across the street from there, we have Cottonwood Heights Apartments. Next to them, we have a giant condo complex. On the corner of 900 East and Van Winkle, we have a brand new townhouse subdivision. So if we're looking for a good mix, I think we already have it in this area. And I prefer that someone else takes on the burden of another MDU versus us. So I'm asking the panel today to just stop and think about the quality of life of those that live in this area, and ask yourself, taxes aside and the revenue this might bring into the city, would you want this next to your house? Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Kirk Polson. I live on 4895 South Naylor Lane. Again, just 2 streets up from this impacted area. I know you don't want to be repeated, but what Eric said, I think I think this section, I can appreciate that we want to get more use out of different areas of the city, but with Miller Estates and Three Fountains and everything that's going into the old Kmart site, the new MASH farms, and that a lot of those are single family, but I think we've got a lot right down in our area that is getting a lot more people coming through there, a lot more density than we really wanted to have in our neighborhood. I know anecdotally the traffic is more. I've lived there since the early 60s, so yeah, it's way more than at that point in time. And I know I understand now that it's not your job to do traffic studies, but I know that the traffic has gotten worse on 48th. I don't know if the new city buildings that are being built down on 48th, what impact that will have. We were worried when the hospital went in, and we saw some traffic bumps from that. And we do worry about the traffic and the safety of ours. And my house borders on 48th, and we do hear it, we do see it all of the time. And I know that this property, the only way you can get in and out of it is on 48th. There's no way to access off of Van Winkle. That's an impossibility there. I just have concerns with the overcrowding in this particular area and the traffic that it may add to the increased traffic we're getting from all other sources. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak to this?
Well, I'm Rob Benedict. I live at 4797 Alicia Parkway. Could you put the topographic map up for a second? So this middle house right over here. And what I'd like to do is talk about the 1 acre piece of land, which I'll call the Larson property. Joan referenced Mr. Larson, who was a wonderful man who lived there for a long time. He's the man that died and precipitated all this. But I'd like to start off, first of all, with the application. And I'm not quite sure why we're taking 1 vote on this instead of 2 votes. And the reason I say that is because the application doesn't support the request. The application says that the application says that the land is no longer useful, right? The land has reached the end of its useful life. But if you look at that, it's undeveloped land, the Larson land, right? So it's an absurdity, actually. I mean, it's not logical to call this at the end of its useful life. So I think on that basis alone, it's, you would have to vote against it. A second reason is this is from the Murray City General Plan, and it says drawing a line around commercial precincts to protect adjacent residential areas, right? So this is the definition of a buffer, right? You've got apartment row over here, Miller Estates, also what are the Brittany Apartments on the other side. So this is what you guys want is a buffer. And Ms. Malkovich, you mentioned the stranded land, right? You don't want to strand the land. This is actually a perfect solution because the developer bought the land, right? Lotus bought the land. So you're not stranding anybody. This land has been single family home since 1913. Murray was actually incorporated in 1902. I looked it up before I came in. But, what hasn't worked for the last 100 years and has now changed. I think also that there could be some possible sensitive land in here. There's springs in here. And if you look at the land, right, it's an undeveloped acre for the most part, but it's contiguous with a river, right? So I think that increases the value of the land. So I think it's, it could possibly be sensitive, and that would be something that I would ask you would look into before the vote. And then finally, it's consistent with other developments. Hidden Woods on the other side of our HOA is single family home. MASH states for single family home. I'm not sure why there's a need to change something that's been, single family home for for 100 years. So, I mean, I don't know if I can't make motions, but I would like to ask that we have separate votes on the 1 acre property and the other property.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Douglas Jensen. I live at 4799 South Alicia Parkway. The first house on 4800 South. It is a busy road. We've talked about all of that and everything, and a danger is there. But Rob briefly mentioned it's really steep. This lane goes down to the Big Cottonwood Creek. It's very steep there. At the bottom of the Larson property, there's, as I understand, a spring-fed pond there. I don't know what you could do with that. If it is spring-fed, I really don't know what you could do with that pond. But it would present a obvious obstacle in any type of development. And I'm not anti-development either. I don't want to speak any towards the businesses there. That can be rezoned, I think, responsibly. But just the land that they're working with, like I said, it's very, very steep. I don't think they're going to build the land up. And it can affect drainage. As a commissioner at the end of the table there brought up earlier with another case, we want to keep Murray beautiful. We do want to keep Murray beautiful. And right now we have a 1 acre lot with a lot of trees. It's just beautiful. All kinds of anything that the wildlife brings, we've got there by the creek and with the trees. And so it's a personal thing. It's a wonderful thing to be able to go out, sit and relax in your backyard and see those trees, and it creates a mellow space. Certainly want to get the spring into the public record. And I guess I just want to leave with a couple of words from Joni Mitchell. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. You don't know what it's got till it's gone. We have a wonderful property there that you can see from the expressway from 4800 South. It would be nice to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Brad Carlson. I live on 4791 South Alicia Parkway. It's the last house on the north of 48 there in the circle. I'm not going to go over a bunch of things that everyone else has. My feelings are the same. I will point out traffic on 48th is pretty bad coming out of this street here. There's been many times where I've had to slam on my brakes because cars are coming up 48th because there's a hill there. It's pretty scary. Also, the terrain, as neighbor said, it is steep here. It's beautiful, the trees. It would be awful to see that go. The wildlife and just the peace and serenity that you have there. And 48 or Van Winkle is pretty noisy as it is right there. If those trees go away, it's going to be a lot noisier. And just, have you guys actually gone over to look at that terrain? You've walked it. So have you seen what we see from our backyards? So I hope you take that in consideration, plus traffic, and thanks for your time.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment portion and bring it back to Zach. There's some questions you want to address.
Yeah, so just a couple things. The traffic, like I said, that would come up if a development proposal comes forward. That would be addressed at that point. The traffic engineer can ask, especially where it's kind of like a weird angle.
Yeah, some like other circumstances.
He could ask for something, and just dependent on where it is. And, the applicant, Allie, did mention that she would be willing to work with city staff. So she'd probably want to work with engineering and our streets department on what would be more appropriate.
Mr. Smallwood?
Yeah.
When we talk, like the comment you just make, we make often because we've been kind of burned before where we started talking about a project and then it turns out that's not the project.
Correct.
Later.
Yes.
That's why we have to be gentle when
Exactly.
approaching it, right?
Yeah. So it depends on what project gets proposed. Often in these things, we require a concept review first, which is what a concept review allows for the applicant to submit some preliminary plans, and that gets farmed out through all the staff, all the different departments in the city, and provides comments to the applicant on what they should expect to see. And that's where we kind of get our first kind of blush at the property and to look at that a little bit more. But that wouldn't happen until, sorry, go ahead, Jared.
Before you move on from that, can I just make one point? Because
Yes.
I'm in a weird position that I'm not normally in, and I get to listen kind of as more of a bystander than I normally get to. And as people are not as familiar with the development process, we keep talking about how that'll come up. The traffic study, it might be required as we look at traffic when we look at a project. And that is true, but that's not to say that the city engineer has not seen this zone change as well.
True.
So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody.
Thank you.
It's not that the city engineering department hasn't seen this potential zone change, and they didn't have concerns enough with the density that would be allowed by the RM15 to say, put the brakes on until we've been able to do some kind of a study beforehand. So don't think that it hasn't been looked at least to that extent. And Trey
I
Stokes has
apologize,
been,
yes.
oh, no, you're good. I'm hearing it and going, I want to make sure we don't miss it.
So what you're kind of saying is they looked at the potential for 47
Yeah.
buildings. They're not
Correct.
able to say where entrances would be or anything
Right.
like that yet.
As opposed to, but to think, I just don't want anyone to go away thinking that they haven't looked at it and said, we don't care about that right now. We'll talk about that later. We'll see if it's a problem. If we were proposing some kind of a zoning that allowed 50 or 60 units the acre, we might have the brakes on already talking about that with Trey. Trey doesn't miss things like this when he reviews this. If he had any concerns with 12 units the acre that he didn't think could be addressed with a traffic study and design, he'd have already put the brakes on it for us. So I just wanted to make that clear before we move on to the next comment.
Okay. So looking at, so definitely, and I apologize, I should have covered that before. During this process, during the rezoning process, this does get farmed out to all the departments. It goes to police, fire, engineering.
School district.
Not the school
Not
district.
yet.
They get notice. They get notice of the change. Water, sewer, every department in the city provides comment and feedback.
So they've seen the proposal to change it and
To the
they've-
zoning, yes.
Yeah, to change the
and
zoning.
that's in your staff reports.
Yes, yeah.
Which I think there were very minimal
Mhm.
comments there. Mostly just what to expect in a potential project. One mention was sensitive lands. Again, that would be evaluated at a project level, but again, city engineer is very aware of that, of where those sensitive lands are, where there are streams and things like that. We're working through that with other applicants right now, with on other properties where there are streams and impacts to those. So we would anticipate that, and we would be working through those, because it really depends on pretty much building placement if it's going to impact.
So rezoning, because we have developed some things that had like a natural spring on them or whatever,
Correct.
and then they to redevelop once it was rezoned. So that's kind of like,
Right.
later there were a lot of requirements and regulations that were put on once they were to that stage of it, but doesn't necessarily change the ability to rezone something.
Correct.
And at this point, do we know is this the point at which we should know? And if so, do we know? It might not be the point at which we should know. There's a pond back there with a creek that goes down to the other creek. And I walked it and saw it when it was for sale and the owner allowed me to. And I wasn't sure if that was a man-made little dammed in area so that the creek ran off to their pond, or if that was a natural spring. So we would know that when it came time for building, right?
Exactly. And not for just building, but at a site plan review. It would have been mentioned in, Trey probably would have brought it up to me at some point. So I have a feeling it might be man-made.
Because it sounds like it was just on someone's private property. So we maybe don't know. In the application, I just wanted to address one of the comments. They said they're trying to find a solution to redevelop a property that we own that is at the end of its economic life. So I think that comment was referring to the businesses,
correct,
and not
necessarily the single family dwelling.
It obviously hasn't reached its economic life.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that was very specific to the GO zoning of this property.
Just another little comment. I mean, it kind of makes me a little bit sick to my stomach that those 3 houses there didn't buy that 1 acre. Because when you own the land, you get to choose what you want to do with it.
100%.
Legally.
I want to talk a second more about traffic before you get off that.
Sure.
Van Winkle is owned by the state?
The state, yes.
So just up the block a little bit, north on Van Winkle, there are two roads that are both right in, right out. And I'm not sure if the DOT would allow a right in, right out on this particular property just because it's a little too close to 4800 South. However, that may be something to look into to help traffic on 4800.
I did think about that as it was being brought up. I don't know if that is wide enough for a right in, right out on your screen, because that's all they have that gets onto Van Winkle, because this is Salt Lake City and not owned by them. This is the Brittany Apartments, which is not owned by them. So I don't know if that's even wide enough for a right in, right out.
And it
is something to look into.
It may be something that Salt Lake City may not be adverse to either, or Salt Lake County. Who did you say owns that?
City.
The city.
Yep, Salt Lake
And
City.
it might be sensitive there as well, though.
They're pretty greedy with their property.
Yeah. Anyway,
but it is something to consider for sure. We can look at that.
But I would also suggest it's very close to 4800 South, and access like that would cause a lot of grief on the amount of traffic that comes down Van Winkle, merging and weaving, etc. So, but I think it's worth looking into
for sure. Yeah, that was as they were talking, as some of the public was bringing that up. I thought about that myself. So.
Okay, I'll have one more traffic.
Yeah.
So 2 other access points into the to the business units there. One a little bit farther west. One with a little bit closer to the Miller's access. And I don't doubt at all that regardless of what goes in here, even if there was more traffic, more business use of, I think there's 20 different potential business units in this business park. And again, if all of them were full to capacity, times of access, yes, I agree, may be different. However, I think if they were full and the point came up, lots of new development that has put traffic on 4800, that some of these drives may have been required to merge. So instead of individual driveways onto 48, there's one. And then, like has been suggested before, it ends up being signalized to prevent or to help the safety issues that we've heard all along.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Are we discussing this commission now? Not yet, or so.
I mean, unless there's anything else that any other public comments that you wanted to
a lot of
just
it
address.
Most of it seemed about the traffic in the area, and that lot as a buffer as well. So kind of what I had mentioned in the staff report and the other calls that I've received.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would appreciate if we could have a discussion with my other commissioners about the pros and cons of separating the two. I feel like I understand why that's been suggested, but I haven't heard enough discussion, strong, convincing, any discussion. I think
they are two separate motions.
Well, I think he's saying separating, not the zone and the general plan. I think they're saying vote on that, at least as I understood it.
Yeah, that's
voting on
787, and then voting on 825.
General office. I think my feeling about that is that the property is all owned by the same person, and they're trying to redevelop it all as the same project, and that's why they're requesting. I mean, if the property owner had come in and said, you know what, we are going to parcel off this much of the R18 and only ask for the RM15 on this part of it, it might be a different conversation, but that's not what they have brought forward.
So I agree. There's one owner. There's not one person that we're putting in this predicament. And the 1 acre plot, the issues with the water on that property will persist. If there's a reason there shouldn't be building on it, it will persist.
Yeah.
Whether we change zoning or not.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure they'll look at if the zoning does get changed by the city council and they look into those things, I mean, they would have to make all of those accommodations. There's so much regulation around water, natural water, spring water, all of those things. So, I mean, I feel confident that those things would be addressed if the zoning map is changed,
I mean, I guess I'd like to hear more discussion, but I'm also thinking we could vote separately, but if that would make the public feel more comfortable, but I'm not sure it would change the outcome.
Yeah. I mean, do you have other comments about that?
No, I think your comment is how I would look at it, Sharon, as far as one property owner owns it all at this point.
I'm on the same page.
I just have one comment, because I don't know that there's a lot we can do at this point, like we said, but just the creative buffer options. There's been a lot of talk about safety, which will probably get addressed at some point, but that acre lot, I'm just looking at this, drawing things on here, different ideas. I'm sure maybe that's the compromise that could potentially be given, and just creative buffer options. I don't know that one of those buffer options would maintain those trees, but maybe there's something that would be a compromise.
I'm going to make a really unpopular comment, and just hear me out. The cul-de-sac neighborhood that's heading to the north, once upon a time, that was trees. That was beautiful land. And they came in and they moved into the neighborhood. And now it's been long enough that those trees have reestablished themselves and they have that buffer. But there was a time when they weren't there. And there was a time when it was quieter, and there was a time when something else was there, and there was less traffic on 48th. And as people have chosen to move into the city, these are some of those incremental compromises that we have to take. And initially, yes, it's a very hard path to see these trees go down and to see that go away. But over 20 years, 30 years, the long game, those trees are going to reestablish themselves. They're going to continue to provide buffers for residents in and around the area. And again, I know that's not a popular opinion, but you kind of have to look at it that way. Something was pristine before you got there, and something's going to be pristine again after you're gone. The properties will turn over in time, and they'll reestablish themselves.
And Commissioner, I know what you're saying is true, but I don't know if it's comforting. It's
It's not comforting, and I recognize that.
Well, the house next to me tore down all the trees, and I hear that I'm on 4800 South, and I hear the traffic significantly more than before, and it's sad. They'll grow back someday. I understand, but who I understand the argument you're making, though. That piece of property, that 1 acre property, there's a significant drop down. So hopefully that will help. Buffers, that's what I'm getting to. Buffers. We talk about buffering all the time. We talk about different zones that help with buffering, and not everyone has the same definition of buffering. Because sometimes in our zones, buffering means you still put a house there. You just don't put a 50-foot house. You put a 35-foot house until you get 100 feet away. Then you put a 50-foot house. So it still means build.
Let me clarify that there wouldn't be a 50-foot house. There would only be a 40.
Yeah, I'm not.
Let's make sure of that too.
And
I don't want to give that impression.
And there is a significant drop off, so maybe that height won't be as effective as it would have been otherwise. And
And again, this gets into, I don't want to get too into a project, but Allie is correct. I have had those conversations with her and told her that if you're going to propose 3 stories, those should be more towards Van Winkle and 48th. That's what we pushed for in the Ivory development on 7th West. We pushed those 3 stories away from the existing single family. So we can work with a developer to make sure that
and
impact.
I think at this point, and we do this a lot when people are developing site plans, but we try to encourage the developers to save as many trees as possible.
Correct.
And to keep those established trees are better than whatever could be planted now and grow in the future. And so I know city staff always encourages save trees that you can save. And so, and it sounds like the owner is open to and willing to be a good neighbor. And so I hope that they heard all of this feedback at this meeting, and that they will take those things into consideration if this zoning change moves forward, then, implementing those things on the site plan. And I think especially for our residents that are an island here surrounded by all of those sides, I mean, the best we can do is just really encourage this development to be good neighbors to those established people that are going to be surrounded. So I think, your comments have been made and been on the record, and you'll have another opportunity to make those comments also at the city council meeting. So I encourage you to go there and to express those same comments and same concerns to them as well.
I have to make one more comment, sorry.
Yeah.
As one of our commissioners likes to say, we call strikes and balls. We don't develop the law. We have to follow it. And so we have to say if it's legal or not legal. Just want to say that. And, personally, I'm kind of hoping that there are some restrictions along that wall with the water, that you have to be gentle, but if there aren't, there aren't. And I would like RM10 better, but it's not my property. So we just have to call balls and strikes and say if it's legal or not legal. Oh.
And I think in regards to that, I mean, reviewing the objectives that are in our general plan, and I do think that this zoning does support reaching some of those objectives. So that's why I feel like, especially moderate income housing, especially diversity of housing,
and maintaining the area as residential.
And maintaining the area as
because
residential.
Someone could have bought that 1 acre property and come and argue they should be GO, and then someone bought the next property and argued, and we could get GO making its way down the road.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You can get a whole new office park in there.
Zach.
Yes.
I heard one comment this evening about potential of crime. And we've heard it in the past that there's crime down along the river between the property and Van Winkle. I don't know if there were other public comments that were provided, written or called in, that asked about crime at all. Can you talk to crime just a little bit? And I know I've seen tents along there. Anything you can add to that?
I would probably pontificate a little bit in that yes, there is a rise in people experiencing homelessness in this valley. A lot of that can be attributed to rising cost of housing. I read a statistic the other day that every $100 in extra rent increases homelessness by 9%. In that those people are forced into having to experience homelessness. And so there is a correlation there. I'm not saying it's causation, obviously. Those don't equal each other, but that can have an impact in not providing housing and not enough housing. As far as crime goes, this is kind of, I'm not saying that everybody that is experiencing homelessness does not do crime, but a vast majority just want to be left alone and be able to sleep somewhere. That's a majority of people that are experiencing homelessness. They just want to be left alone and go to sleep. So I don't equate necessarily. There's of course bad actors, people that are experiencing homelessness, and they are bad actors and have problems that need to be addressed. Moving on, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, do you think the nature of this being businesses and being closed in the nights and the evenings versus, something where residents are living there more full time?
Yep. We have
maybe could help cut back on some of that.
We have, in other discussions, we've talked about Eyes on the Street. It's a very popular, well, it's not very popular, but it's a planning term, is that if you have, windows facing out onto a street of a residence, it's less likely that you're going to have people willing to commit crime and do nefarious acts, because they could be being watched by people in the neighborhood. It provides that neighborhood watch almost. And yeah, when you have vacant buildings that are vacant, you see great big sign outside that says for lease, and wide open parking spaces, you get those people that feel like they can do more nefarious acts. And so, yeah, there is a potential for crime in that area. I have not seen peer-reviewed papers that equate higher density to crime. It's a different type of, you have more people. So you have more people, there will be crime. But it doesn't mean that just because they are closer together that they create or that they cause more crime, or the people that are living there create more crime. It's just the nature of having more people. That's kind of what I would probably speak to.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion for the commission? Is there a motion? So remember, we're forwarding a recommendation to the city council, and we'll be making two motions: general plan amendment recommendation and a zoning map amendment recommendation.
Madam Chair, I'm going to choke, but I'm going to try to get this motion out. I'd make a motion that we forward a recommendation of approval to the city council for the requested amendments to the future land use map, redesignating the properties located at 787 and 825 East, 4800 South from low density residential and office to medium density residential.
I have a motion by Commissioner Nate to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment of the future land use map, redesignating the properties located at 787 and 825 East, 4800 South from low density residential and office to medium density residential. Is there discussion on that motion? Is there a second?
Madam Chairman, I'll second it.
Okay, and I have a second by Commissioner Hacker. Do you want to take a vote?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Ney.
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich.
I wish it wasn't quite so big, but yes.
And Chair Patterson.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, for our zoning map amendment, is there a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'll make that motion to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the properties located at 787 and 825 East, 4800 South, from R18 Low Density Single Family and GO General Office to RM15 Multifamily Medium Density Residential as described in the staff report.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Hacker to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment of the zoning map designation of the properties located at 787 and 825 East, 4800 South, from R18 Low Density Single Family and GO General Office to RM15 Multifamily Medium Density Residential. Is there any discussion on that motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Ney.
Okay. Commissioner Hacker.
Yes.
Commissioner Ney.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich.
Yes.
And Chair Patterson.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, those will move on to the City Council. So we encourage you to go to those meetings as well. Okay, our last item on our agenda is discussion about House Bill 462 as it relates to moderate income housing.
All right. So, just a little bit of background. So, where we are in the process so far. As you'll remember, in previous discussions at the legislature this past March, I suppose, it was HB 462 passed the state requiring cities to amend their moderate income housing plans. In May and June, we both had discussions with you as a body as well as the City Council. And now we're getting up. I'm sorry, I didn't change my little arrow. July 5th is over. So that was at my City Council meeting the other night. I should have moved my arrow forward. So to the Planning Commission discussion. So we are now here at the Planning Commission discussion to discuss the staff's proposed menu item selection. We took the feedback that you guys gave to us in looking at those menu items and what ones you think we should look at a little bit more, and based on that same from the City Council. So we're just going to pretty much go over those. So why are we here tonight? Just a brief review. Like I said, May and June, we discussed the moderate income housing plan generally, Chapter 9. We also discussed HB 462 and what that is being required cities to do. And then we brought forward those menu items and had a really great discussion on what you guys liked, what you didn't like. And we decided to move forward with the 5 that we have. So that we'll review those 5 selections and 3 alternatives. We were able to narrow down the entire list down to 10. And then we just took what was the most well-liked, and it actually ended up being exactly the number we needed. So those are the ones we decided to move forward with. So after tonight, based on the discussion we have here, we'll be moving forward to craft exact language and firm up the implementation plans. And on your August 4th meeting is when we will have a public hearing. These are drop dead dates, so I can't, I have no wiggle room. So I will have to do it on August 4th, have this done ready for you guys to hold a public hearing at that point to amend the general plan. and then move that on to the city council.
Mr. Smallwood, did you just say none of us can be sick between now and August 4th?
You can be sick between now and August 4th,
Not on August
but
4th.
not August 4th.
Not if it postpones in a meeting.
Yeah, exactly. And then that'll get everything set up so that we can have a report to the state by October 1st. And yeah, so what we're moving forward with. So I'll start off with, we are not changing the goal of the 2017 general plan moderate income housing element, which is to provide a diversity of housing through a range of types and development patterns to expand the moderate income housing options available to existing and future residents. So the 5 that we're recommending at this point, if you guys will remember, there is one that we don't have a choice on, which is number 5. That is mandated by the state. And then also number 3 was from a list of 3 options that you had to choose one of. So this was the most the one that had the most consistence was on number 3. So number 1, demonstrate investment in the rehabilitation or expansion of infrastructure that facilitates the construction of moderate income housing. Number 2, create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units in residential zones. 3, amend land use regulations to allow for higher density or new moderate income residential development in commercial or mixed use zones near major transit investment corridors. Number 4, implement a mortgage assistance program for employees of the municipality, an employer that provides contracted services to the municipality, or any other public employer that operates within the municipality. And then 5, develop and adopt a station area plan in accordance with section 109A403.1, which is state code. So, and then these are the alternatives. So, you guys are free to make recommendations on any of the items, but if there's something in the first 5 that you just absolutely do not like, we'd prefer that you kind of look at these 3 first. So the first one here would be demonstrate utilization of a moderate income housing set aside from a community reinvestment agency, redevelopment agency, or community development and renewal agency to create or subsidize moderate income housing. In short, in Murray, that's all just the RDA. There's different terminologies that the state has used throughout the years for either CRAs or RDAs or CDRAs that all mean pretty much the same thing.
But neighborhood works doesn't count in any way.
I'm sorry?
Neighborhood works doesn't count in any way.
Not for that.
NeighborWorks is a community reinvestment agency.
There you go.
So
yes.
CRAs are community redevelopment areas or community reinvestment areas, but the CRA here is like
NeighborWorks. Yeah. So number 2, demonstrate creation of or participation in a community land trust program for moderate income housing. And lastly, implement zoning incentives for moderate income units in new developments. So before let me make sure I didn't start this. Let's go through this first. So in accordance with HB 462, we have to have an implementation plan for each of those 5 items that we need to report on. That includes dates, like hard deadline dates for us as staff to, and the city as a whole, to be looking at and provide updates yearly to the state on how we're progressing in meeting those goals. Now, one thing I do want to bring up is that, and I made sure to kind of explain this to the council as well, just because these 3 things are not selected as menu items doesn't mean that we're not doing those things. Jared and I have had many a discussion over number 3 specifically. You guys may or may not know, you guys probably do know a little bit about it, but there's a whole section, as you know, for example, the RM15 zone has a base density of 12 units per acre, but then we have a chapter in our code that has a density bonus pretty much. If you meet pretty stringent requirements, you have to do a lot of things. And one of those things has moderate income housing, but a lot of the other things are really hard to meet as well. And so Jared and I have had many discussions about trying to make that a little bit easier, not require so much of them. And then obviously, you guys may not know this, but in RDA areas, a lot of RDA areas, they are required to set aside a portion of their, the money that they receive as, to be used for moderate income housing. I believe we have 2.7 million in the RDA area that will be spent on modern income housing programs and projects, things like that. We do spend some of that money in a couple of projects at Fireclay that provide low income housing in that area. That some of that was developed using some of those funds. So it's not that we're not going to pursue these things. It's just that we're not going to have them specifically stated with specific actionable implementation plans. You guys probably have already gotten this over time. Jared's very passionate about housing, so it's always on the forefront of our mind, talking about housing and things like that. So
last time we spoke about this, we talked a little bit about what to put in this plan and what you get credit for. So if we don't put that in, number 3 there, and you do something regarding it, do we know for sure? Do you get credit for it because it's not in our plan?
We'll still report it. So lots of things that so when there's 2 things going on here. The thing that Zach's working on right now is making us in compliance with HB 462. Too many numbers. HB 462. So we have to have certain goals, et cetera. And we wanted to choose the ones that would make the most sense. And actually one of the criteria was, I think the two big criteria were, what did everyone kind of mostly agree on? Where were the consensuses? Where were they built around? Right. And then which ones were the most likely to which ones were the most reasonable to write good implementation strategies for? Because that's something that we haven't done before. We haven't written in timeframes and benchmarks, et cetera. So we're doing, for example, a lot of the things in number 1 with NeighborWorks. Part of that set aside money that we get, part of that 2.7 goes, that's how we pay NeighborWorks every year. That's how we fund them every 2 years, rather. But we don't necessarily want to benchmark. We're not prepared right now to say, here's how we're going to benchmark increasing that or demonstrating that we're going further with that. We want to talk about it for a while first. So we don't want to make it a strategy this year, although it's a good alternative. If we hate one of those 5, we'll work out some with NeighborWorks or find another CRA or whatever. But
and these aren't ranked, by the way.
So we still will, and then that's the one thing that we're doing, right? And then the other part of it is that not this year, but next year in October or July or whenever it is, it moves all the time. And so it's been December for a few years, so I'm used to that. When we file a full report on our moderate income housing efforts, it won't just be on the goals. We'll report on those goals specifically and how we've done, but we'll tout every single thing that we've done. We'll list all the different things that we do. I'm sure they haven't put out the newest form, but every little tiny thing that we do that supports multifamily housing, everything that we do that supports modern income housing, we will report on. Yep. So we get credit for it in that this is your minimum, your baseline.
You want credit and extra credit.
Right.
Yes.
It's extra credit.
Wanting credit and extra credit, and I apologize, I don't remember the correct terms for what I'm about to say, but the program was set up so that if you complied, you can get this grant or this funding, which we've never applied for, never had. So in our attempt to get credit and extra credit, we will also find a need to apply for this money.
Well,
they just won't withhold it. Right?
They won't withhold it. So we're entitled to it, but we've never used it thus far, but that could always change.
Yeah, all this work. Let's find something that,
and I think I mentioned as well that it affects it affects projects in the city too. So State Street, for example, if the state went after TIF and TTIF money for State Street,
let's say no more,
and we didn't do anything.
Beautiful to Murray, there's potholes, and it's beautiful after.
Correct. Yeah, that's if we do nothing. We're not doing nothing. And
who's to say what they go after us for next year? Next year's a brand new year.
Yep. And they're going to be
talking. They can change their whole minds about everything again.
Yes.
And go after some other aspect of something. We want to comply.
Correct. Yep. and so doing the 5, that's going to get us to just the where we need to be. It's not the 6 where we get preferential, but it's the 5. So I'll just start with going over some of the implementation plans. I'll kind of just pause after everyone. If you guys have questions or comments on them, we can talk about that each one. So I'm just going over the 5 that we're proposing. I'm not going over the alternatives, but I do have information on that if you have questions. So first one is demonstrate investment in the rehabilitation or expansion of infrastructure that facilitates the construction of moderate income housing. Now, our preliminary implementation plan, Murray City Power is planning to do a master plan update, from what I understand, in the next year or so. I just haven't updated this actual number. So we'll have us work with them to kind of determine, where the best places are to potentially increase capacity to allow for moderate income housing. That typically equates to additional density, if we're being 100% honest. So I have that date set at 12/31/27. When you guys actually see this, I'll probably have a more firmed update. Next is collaborate with Murray City Water to update their master plan and identify areas of opportunities to increase capacity. That's by the end of year next year, because I do know that they are planning on working on that this year, or this upcoming year in 2023 early.
Did they look at any of these things? Like, my understanding was part of the moratorium was having different agencies look at different parts of the city that could handle.
Correct. We did do that. Specifically for the sewer wastewater. That's why if you'll see at the bottom, it says the increased capacity by 12/31/2027, because they literally just finished theirs in 2021, I think. So I don't anticipate us having to reevaluate that, because they put that into their master plan, preparing for things like a potential Galleria site, potential MCCD sites, other TOD and MCMU sites. They have a plan for that. So yes, as part of the moratorium, that was reviewed.
They were kind of like that. Okay.
Yep. So I'll just skip that one. And then this one, in coordination with Murray City Parks and Recreation, review the 2020 Parks and Recreation Master Plan and update the City Council on progress of the 10-year plan by 12/31/2025. Thinking about it now, maybe we should include Planning Commission on this. So they did a rewrite of their entire Parks Master Plan in 2020. I was on kind of the technical committee for that. And they have a 10-year horizon on their implementation strategies and things like that. So I thought 2025 is a good middle of the road, have an update to you guys, give you an introduction maybe to the Parks and Rec Master Plan, because it actually is pretty exciting. I think you guys have probably heard about my ambitious goal to turn that detention basin over by Jefferson into a park. That's in that master plan to evaluate that. So it's on the books to look at it and talk about it. And there's a few other projects and things like that. Yes. Yeah. It's on our website in the Parks and Rec Department site. I can also send you a copy as well. I can email one over. I can email one to all of you guys. It's a lengthy read. It's a pretty thick read.
Are you hoping for Smallwood Park?
For what?
At the detention.
Maybe.
Smallwood Park.
Hey, maybe. That could be fun.
Smallwood Memorial Detention Pond.
Yeah, Smallwood Memorial, because, by the time I'm done here, I'm going to be murdered. So, so that's kind of what we're looking at in this preliminary. Just spouting these off to you guys is jogging my mind of things that I want to add and change. So we'll move on. Are there any questions on these so far? Okay. So we'll move on to create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units in residential zones. So we feel like this can be reviewed. So by 12/31/2023, review regulations to facilitate the construction of additional detached ADUs. This is where us as a city have had very low applications for accessory dwelling units. We've had about 2.
No one has the property to do it.
Not about
Exactly. Yeah. It's because there are a lot of requirements. You have to have at least a 12,000 square foot lot. You have to have 25 feet in the rear, and which usually means you're right up against the house, because most houses are built at that 25 foot setback as well. So you have to have close to 80 feet of backyard before you could get a detached ADU, because you have to have that 25 feet, whatever the house is, and then a space between, the ADU space and then the house. So they're very hard. They're very hard to meet, like Jared said, or held his hand up. And
so is it easier to meet to make a flag lot?
Sometimes.
Probably.
Sometimes. But also you run into the problem of houses that are really narrow. Just talk about the property we just made a recommendation on. I don't think that's quite 12,000 square feet. And well, it's an acre, so I guess it is 12,000 square feet. Never mind, just ignore what I said. Just ignore me entirely. So anyway, we think we can get through this. We think we have the support for it. So these are just some ideas we've thrown out. Review and determine whether to allow a second ADU to be located on properties.
Yes.
Midvale actually does this already. Allows for an internal ADU and a detached ADU.
So when you say review, you mean like review if the regulations are too hard so you can make it so more people can do it?
So I say review so that we can look at it. I don't want to, and I don't think the attorneys would like me to say that we shall say that a second ADU shall be located on properties, because then that binds you as a council, and it binds the city, you as the commission and the city council into doing action. Or this makes it seem like at least that you guys are bound to that, even though you may not be.
I guess my question was maybe confusing.
Sorry.
I'm just saying, when you're saying review, you're saying we couldn't have, the way things are written right now, you can't have a detached and an internal.
Correct.
Because the detached is too hard to have. So you're saying
you can. Our code specifically says that only one ADU is allowed on a property.
Okay.
So you can either have an internal or you can have
Or
a
a
detached.
detached,
You
okay.
can't have both.
And I think we say review and determine, you're opening it up for discussion. We can all say no or yes, but
Exactly.
if then.
Yeah. We can have that. We can have that talk.
I'm thinking 8-foot setbacks.
Rear yard,
rear and side yard.
Yeah.
Property setbacks.
That's not unreasonable. I mean, it's something that I think a lot of places have 10 feet on the sides, or if you're within 10 feet, you don't have windows. If it's like on a second story or something, that goes to that third bullet point, allowing possibly for a second story if it's being used for an ADU, because right now we don't allow second stories on detached structures. So, if you're doing an ADU, and then we can write code in there that says that if you're within 10 feet or so, or on the property, on the wall facing, the property line, no windows on that side. So you're not looking into people's backyards. You're looking the other way. So there's a lot that we can do. You guys know, I'm passionate about ADUs. I will tell you, just to give you a small little update, we are double the ADUs that we have had in the past 2 years. As you guys know, you forwarded the recommendation the city council eventually adopted, that they're just permitted uses, and we just review them as staff. So we are getting a lot.
Those statistics are difficult to determine at this point, I would think, because did we actually double, or we just now know about the ones that existed?
These are all new.
All new.
These are all new ones. So yeah, they're new. One was in Mash Farm, one's in Wynwood. We have we have 8 right now, and I think I've had 2 applications come in that we have to do some research on. So
Isn't that because of the state regulation? Not
I don't know.
anything we did.
I think it's a mix, because I mean, technically we would have still left it as a conditional use, right? And
application process is still the same, other than coming here.
which actually takes a lot of time because we have to notify people and it delays things a lot. We turn those around in about a week, as opposed to.
I would say it's more because the state made regular.
Oh yeah, they definitely that helped removing those size requirements and things. That helps for sure. We don't have to look at them as strictly as we used to. So anyway, going on. Sure, please.
Can I make one quick comment just about the ADUs and the properties in which they face, the siding they face, and the windows they face? Just because I was in two discussions recently where someone has BLM property behind them. So when we put restrictions on where windows can be, we need to take that in consideration. Because one property, their whatever east side of the property was facing BLM. So if we said there couldn't be any windows on the east side of ADU, we're not serving the purpose we were intending to.
Yeah, I mean,
you could probably word it as like facing another property or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot. It would take it. I mean, that's to be done next year.
Yeah.
as I go forward and start looking at
Might not
those.
be here when that discussion happens.
Yes.
So I wanted to throw that thought out there.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe you won't even have to because it'll be written in. So, so yeah, let's move on to the next one. So this one is amend land use regulations to allow for higher density or new moderate income residential development in commercial or mixed use zones near major transit investment corridors. This is one that you see that I have to firm up some things because I'm not sure what to look at for those. So the first one, review the MCMU zone by some date in the future and determine whether allowing for substantially increased density, provided that a portion of the project is developed as moderate income housing, is appropriate. That's one that I think is worth a look. Pretty much the same thing for the center's mixed use. Review those land use regulations and see if there's ways to encourage moderate income housing in those.
I gotta say, I can't get my mind around that because the community is worried about the density. So we're now saying if you put lower income people, it will let you have more density. The community is just going to melt.
Yeah.
That's why there's no dates filled in on these.
Yeah.
All of this requires a lot of conversation. And when we say review and determine, it's we need public input on it before we're in front of you. We need to conduct open houses or something and try to, even if they're educational or in some way, to try to get some public opinion swayed toward giving this kind of issue the importance that it needs in the public mind.
And I'll mention this too. I don't know how successful it may be, but I know that at this last legislature, they provided funding for some department. It was a pretty good amount of funding too, to start a campaign to inform Utah residents on growth. So that might start to happen as well, that some of those conversations might be happening at I don't know how well this state communicates, but it just, they have some money to start doing those, some of those things too. Not to say that we wouldn't want to do that. And again, this is just review the MCMU zone and see if it's feasible, see if it's something that can be done. So yeah.
All of these talk about moderate income housing. Should one of the tasks be looking at potential funding sources to fund moderate income housing? We've got all the land, we've got all the property, we've got the correct zoning. Developers aren't going to build moderate income housing. Zach, you showed us what the mean income or what the mean price of a home is in Murray and in the state. And then even close to anything considered moderate.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Mr. Hacker, when I was saying that is the payout. You get to put more units in. Maybe the payout should be you get the same amount of units, but we give you a tax deduction or a.
Well, there are federal tax programs to provide that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's definitely something to look at. I don't know where it would fit in one of these 5. Because this one specifically calls out land use regulations. But it's definitely something to look into.
I guess we've been talking about it, and we have also at the Wasatch Front Regional Council, but has anybody built any?
Moderate income housing.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple of projects. There are projects up in Fireclay that were built with low income housing tax credit funding.
I think we have 5 projects total.
5 total.
Isn't it Trip Lane project?
What is a project?
Trip Lane might be well any buildings or developments.
Project one home.
Well,
or
sure.
10 homes.
Any project that has any connection to LIHTC at all is going to get considered a project.
Yeah.
So when we say we have 5 projects, it might be that there's only a certain number of units. If the question is, do we have any single units where everything in it is low income housing?
No.
The answer is no. We don't have a single low income. But I think that's actually a good thing. In my personal opinion, we ought to be spreading.
No, I agree.
We ought to be spreading that
I
out
agree.
through 2 different projects. We probably want to do more, but the city doesn't have any. So we have set aside money as an RDA, right? That we could use the way that low income housing tax credit monies get used. We have used that RDA funding to say, so there are projects in Fireclay that, for example, have used that federal money, tax credit money, state money, tax credit money. And there are projects that used RDA money, where the RDA said, if you'll build this project and you'll make sure that X number of units, 20% or 15% of the units are rented to folks at no more than this much money, so that it's for low income, then you get X amount of dollars from the RDA. And we calculate that every year and pay them out for those projects that they did. And so that's their reimbursement from the RDA. So we have committed that kind of money. What you're talking about, though, is finding other funding sources to kind of ramp up what we do by putting actual dollars toward subsidizing housing. And that we have not done, you're right. Mm-hmm. We'd have to look at, you're talking about really committing general fund money to it and saying it's important enough to the city to set aside $1 million a year to say we're going to do this. There are cities that do that. San Francisco does that in spades. There are projects, the Fry House, et cetera, that are all completely subsidized with city monies. I don't know that we have that kind of budget. I'm not a budget person. So if Brenda's watching this, which she probably is out there.
She loves watching this.
Brenda's probably watching, and she's probably at this point going, you're saying all of this wrong. So she'll send you all an email and let you know how false everything I just said was. But yeah, it's hard to imagine where the funds would come from. We have the availability of federal dollars. We have the availability of state dollars. We have our own, but you got to have developers come in and do it. Mm-hmm. To entice them to do it, even to entice them to take advantage of that money, usually means more units. Usually means saying, well, you can get this many more units. It's kind of like when we stay off of sensitive lands. Well, I don't want to stay off the sensitive lands. I'm cutting down all the trees and I'm piping that stream. Well, what if we let you build the same number of units you could have anyway, but you keep the stream and the trees? Well, okay, then that's fine. As long as you'll let me put it somewhere else. As long as I don't lose anything in it, then great. We have to do that kind of thing. So most of Zach's suggestions here, that's why they're related that way, because it's hard for us to build an implementation plan that has no more than a 5-year horizon and commit federal dollars to it. Again, Brenda's listening right now and saying, absolutely, you don't get to commit, or not federal dollars, city general fund dollars. We're not at that point yet, but it's a thought that's in all of our minds. Where do we get more of this money to do more projects?
Whatever happened to Brodsky's, is that his last name?
Yeah.
Yeah, his project over in Fireclay.
He gets paid every year for it.
But he didn't build it.
Well, not all of it. He gets less than he was going to get if he had built all of it. So, and Hooper Knowlton's project is still underway. He's got one more phase to build, and he'll get a little more money when he builds that final phase. If he puts the if he uses low income tax credits for it. We have a project that Zach's reviewing right now, I think, that's got low income tax credits.
Yes.
Low income housing tax credits in it that will be for 55 and older in Fireclay as well. Fireclay's been the area that has attracted it. And then we do have that one townhome as you drive up the Vine Street. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on Vine Street. You drive up Vine Street, the Avonlea townhomes, there are a lot of brick, Greek gentlemen built them. One of those units is reserved for people at 80% or less of the median income.
Yep.
I don't know. He just verifies with us every December that it's still rented to somebody that's of that income bracket.
Yep.
I don't know how he advertises it, to be honest. Yep. He just finds when he's looking at tenants. I know I've looked at apartments before and they've said, well, we have this apartment available, but my daughters were looking for a place and they're like, well, they've got to qualify for 80% or less of the AMI because they have 5 or 6 units in their complex. It's probably like that through his leasing. He just knows that unit's got to stay. So.
All right. So
I commit to talk less from this
No,
point
that's
on.
okay.
I'm good.
So I'll move on.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
Not really. We still have 3 other slides. The next bullet point, review the MCCD zone by 12/31/23. This one, the city council has expressed a desire to review the MCCD zone again.
Because we're not developing it yet?
There's a lot of things.
It's to cut off all the good stuff.
No, I don't know. Well, I mean, no, I don't think so. If you guys knew or didn't know, maybe you guys were lucky enough to get one. Did you all get surveys?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I think that was rigged.
No, it was not. It was not. Do not say that. Do not say that. It was a random statistic sample of 10,000 residents to provide feedback for the specifically 4800 South and State Street and the MCCD as a whole. I believe we took 1,000. We just sent it to 10,000 people. We hope for at least 1,000 responses. Yeah.
When does it close?
It's closed.
If you didn't respond, you're
I
done.
did.
Okay, good job.
Good. Yeah. So we're waiting for, they're called Y2 Analytics. They're compiling all the data. If you're,
What you're using to review the MCCD with the.
that's going to inform the discussion. Yeah.
It'll be a great tool for us for a million different things. Probably the first thing out of the barrel will be that, because the same night on the 19th of January,
July
has been the longest and shortest 6 months at the same time. On the 19th of July, the RDA, the Y2 Analytics will present the results of the survey to the RDA. So if you want to tune in and watch that, it's like 4 o'clock, I think. No, it's earlier than that. It'll be earlier than that.
It's going to be much earlier than that because you have like 3 hours worth of stuff.
It'll be like at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
So yeah, they'll be presenting that night. So if you want to see the results and
really excited,
kind of what everybody thought collectively, you're going to get to hear that night. So, and we'll use that going forward to determine probably more what has to happen or what needs to happen on Block 1 than anything. But the MCCD in general, the councils has asked me to talk about that. They want CED to review that zone with them, where it stands and what it does and what it doesn't do, that same night, actually, in the committee of the whole. So at 4 o'clock or 4:30, I'll be talking about that.
It's just going to make me cry.
I'll try not to make you cry.
Yeah.
We're maintaining. If we can creep back, we will. So keep the good hope.
Okay. Jared said he was going to talk less and he didn't talk less. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. No, I was really excited to kind of talk about that survey anyway.
Saying interesting things.
Yeah, I know. So last one on this bullet, research and draft appropriate mixed use zone or zones for Fashion Place West. We specifically included this one because the Fashion Place West area has a small area plan, but it's the only station that doesn't have some sort of mixed use zoning around it. So we specifically wanted to include this on that implementation plan because that is going to be required by the state to review that station area plan and adjust that. All right, moving on to the next one. So this is implement a mortgage assistance program for employees, contracted people, and other public employers in the city. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So this one is probably the most, I would say probably most impacted to the city. Every one of you liked it. The city council really liked it. What needs to happen now is that we need to figure out how to pay for it and how to make that happen.
Just that part.
Yeah. So
property taxes went up 15%.
Hey. So
good with another 15.
Yeah.
Fund this program.
You wanna give us more?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So by 12/31/2022, us as staff and working with the finance department to assess the scope and feasibility of a program, Brenda and I have already been communicating back and forth. West Jordan has this program already in place. So we've been, and the old finance director actually moved to West Jordan, so we have a relationship with her there, and we've been kind of working behind the scenes on how that might work. And then by 12/31/2023, we'll present a proposal for a down payment assistance program to the city leaders. This just a proposal, not necessarily that it's going to be implemented right away. So this is really just in the air, how we might fund it, what needs to happen there. So any questions on this one?
So is this mortgage assistance for any employee?
We haven't figured that out yet. Yep, that's going to be part of that feasibility and scope of the project.
I would guess no.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess it'd be
no as
tied
well.
to that AMI as well.
Yeah.
Because the principle
Does that mean the city will have to pay less salary to keep people under being poverty level?
That's an interesting thought. We could start tying the salaries and step plans to keeping us below levels.
Yeah.
Start the program. I'm sure there's enough employees.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is this kind of goal is related to that somebody famous at some point, some columnist or somebody said a city without its bus drivers and grandmothers and police officers and teachers is not a city. And he was lamenting the new San Francisco that has lost all of those people. So you don't want to become that place. And if you don't want to become that place and your housing cost trajectory is looking like ours, which looks like San Francisco in the 90s, you got to do something. And this is maybe the way to do it. If you want to keep neighborhoods that are not full of, or that have a diversity of people in them, you have to do something. So it's an attempt at that.
Definitely.
What if they come back and say there's no feasibility?
Then we will come back with a change in the general plan to bring up a new menu item.
Yeah,
that
we'll have to.
I anticipate, depending on how this pans out, what the state does next legislative session, there might have to be changes, and
I remember saying to Zach, this one is hard. This requires a lot of work and it requires finance stuff, which always makes my head hurt even thinking about it. But there was just too much consensus around that idea from the Planning Commission and from the comments we got from City Council to not look into it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it sounds great. I'm sure everybody loves it, but it does seem
you got to pay for
hard. How do you pay for it?
Yeah, exactly.
To address Ned's concern, I'm assuming there would be a deadline. This is a program that exists for 10 years. So at some point,
maybe
the
you have to
employees that
reassess.
could apply for the program would bounce itself out. Instead of start paying them less than they can apply, then the program would end.
Yeah. I don't know.
See, and that's not what I had envisioned in my brain, but maybe that's an option.
That's
Maybe
kind of a
that's
stopgap. It would be in place while we have this problem. And eventually the problem wouldn't exist and the program wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to say that this problem's not going away for a long time.
I agree.
Okay. So, all right, moving on to the second. Wow. Actually, just kidding. The last one. Come on. There we go. Lastly is pretty much straightforward. Develop and adopt a station area plan in accordance with section 10(9A) 4301. So this is a state mandated date by 12/31/2025. We'll have station area plans adopted for the stations that we have in the city. My intention is to move from is to do the hardest one first, which is Fireclay. There are funds being made available through WFRC, through the state. We anticipate going after some of that money. So that application's due on like July 18th. So I'll be
the hardest one.
because it doesn't have one currently. It doesn't have a station area plan currently. Both Fashion Place West and Murray Central have one, and that just takes just amendments. Fashion Place West will probably be the easiest one to do. It already has a set of implementation goals, just not hard dates. And it has a lot of those things that it addresses. that the state wants addressed. So Murray Central, it's a whole nother bag of chips.
Because a lot of Murray Central can't be developed.
Can't be done. Yeah, it's just
right. Right. And the state gives us credit for that if we make that determination. It has to be included pretty much in a resolution that it's unfeasible to develop.
Would you look at all those stations at the same time? Here's my thought. I wonder if you could request from WFRC monies to do all three of them. We actually have
Megan and I talked about that yesterday.
No, we just have 3.
Well, we have the front runner, so technically 4.
Yeah, front runner and central.
We get extra money for that, even though it's at the same station.
We probably could, because they both need
Turn
it.
down extra money.
Different
generally
track,
speaking.
different station.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I'm thinking is if you can convince Megan that that's feasible,
She
you could
actually-
do one request and then do all, whatever, 3 or 4 stations, whatever you consider.
So the upside is you get more money up front.
And don't skimp on asking, because that's easy money and you'll get it. You'll get at least some, and there are little or no strings attached.
Yeah. So
that was going to be my question. By asking for 4, is there any chance that all 4 can get denied instead of 2 accepting
No.
one? No, just
If nothing else, what they'd do, Lisa, is they'd say, we're just going to give you money for 2 or 1, but they won't deny the whole thing.
Is there another? I mean, I know like downtown obviously has lots of, but are there other cities that within their city limits have like 4 stations?
No.
Yeah.
West Jordan has a few, don't
Salt
they?
Lake
With the red
City.
line.
Salt Lake City has the most.
Sandy.
Sandy has
1.
Well, they have a front. No,
90th.
South Jordan.
South Jordan has the
runner.
front. Sandy's got 2. The old Bellevue or whatever they call it.
Midvale has
And then they have
3.
the historic
Oh,
Sandy.
and 100 South.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Draper's got
90th and 100.
Draper's got 3. They're all.
Yeah, I don't
they're
think
all,
more than 3.
they're all less impressive than ours. If you're listening, Draper.
Yeah.
Just
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think
the Old Town and 114th and
South Salt Lake. They have South Salt Lake probably because they have
South Salt Lake has 3.
they have the streetcar line.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they've got 4 because they've got the streetcar
Streetcar.
station.
Yeah, so they have those stations. So,
We're still the best.
so my only concern about asking to do all of them at the same time is bandwidth. Is
Our own band.
our own bandwidth in trying to do one full station, one significant amendment, and one easy amendment. So I've spaced them out. That doesn't mean that we can't go forward. I met with Megan and Jordan Swain yesterday, had a good, healthy conversation about how we might possibly be able to move forward with Fashion Place West sooner through alternative routes because it is so easy to, it's low hanging one. Anyway, that's kind of an aside. Megan Townsend is the community development director for WFRC. She's kind of the one that administers like the TLC grants that we've gotten funding for Murray Central and Fashion Place West, that kind of stuff. So we work pretty closely with her. So that is it. It's not being responsive tonight. Questions, comments, anything you love, anything you hate, anything you want changed, any direction before I start putting my head in the sand and writing.
Can you hire anybody else to help you?
Ask Jared that question.
We can, but it's got to have longevity beyond just those 4 stations. I don't do temporary positions. We'll see. We're
And how long is Susan going to be here?
Another few years. We got Susan for the
Weeks?
years. Susan
Years?
says 3 to 5 years.
Oh,
So
well.
we'll see.
How long has she been here?
31.
So
That's why you're asking. 31. No, keep her. We need her. But boy,
Yeah.
that's-
She's great. Yeah.
yeah, no, we could hire Megan. Maybe we could. If there's enough money in those grants to
No,
put Megan
you
on the
can't. I gave her a big raise before I left.
We're not going to. Can't afford Megan. That's established.
No.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. What
We
happens.
can't afford her.
Yeah. So we have work to do, but it's good work. And luckily Jared's given me kind of a wide berth. I'm able to push off a lot of like these current projects onto Seth and Susan while I dig deep into this stuff. So it's been pretty nice to kind of work on that stuff. So without objections, I'm going to move forward and start bringing you stuff August 4th. So yeah, I guess now I'll let you chair because you're the chair.
I have a comment.
Any other business? Oh, yeah.
Well, this kind of business. So I'm going on vacation next week.
Me too.
Other than participating by phone on the 21st of July and the 4th of August, I won't be here.
That's quite the vacation.
The retirement.
Whoa.
It's retired.
Yeah.
So
Fair enough.
can I
Congratulations.
participate by phone?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can do that.
I also will not be here on the 21st.
Would you also like to participate by phone?
I cannot participate.
She's on the record as not wanting to participate.
Oh, come on. It's going to be Boyer, you guys.
Okay.
It's going to be what?
Boyer. RC Willie.
Yes.
Are you serious?
It is.
You guys, I can't. I have state PTA convention
That's
all
fine.
day.
Yeah.
And always send us your thoughts. So
I will also not be here on the 21st.
Hey, can you tell me what UDOT did to State Street?
Yeah, what is happening?
no,
It's just
honestly,
replacement.
Just
Replacement of
Are they making the
they took out some medians. I don't.
yeah, they're just going to make them.
narrow?
So it has nothing to do with the BRT.
That's what I thought.
It does not.
I wish I could say that it did. It doesn't
But why? Then why do it?
because it's UDOT. They're just gonna
Because they have money out the wazoo, so they want to do
Make
it.
any sense?
Well, they didn't. They
I don't know.
Didn't look that great, but I just thought they were going to spruce them up. But they're changing the current.
They're just, from what I understand, because I had a little nerd rage because they took out a planted median against.
Is that the only one they're going to take out?
Yes. For now.
Which one's that? North of 40?
It was on Vine. It was on Vine and
Vine by the Dave
State.
Marie.
Yeah, there was a tree in it. Yeah. I may have screamed a little bit in my car when I saw it.
Did you
gone.
call
The
them
big
names?
one's still there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it was a big one. Yeah.
So did they even ask?
No, they didn't ask.
Best.
I
Well,
have to ask.
yeah.
It's their road. They can do whatever they want.
So anyway, so I asked about it, and they're just replacing them with pretty much taller
Ugly.
islands. Yeah, the really
tall,
thick
ugly,
cement
that don't do
ones that
anything.
are further down on
Other-
State,
Good.
that are really thick.
Not very nice.
So
You can still drive over them.
I can't. My little car.
If you hit it enough, your momentum will carry you over.
Oh, that.
It doesn't seem like much of a positive from our angle. But
Yeah,
No,
but
not at all.
yeah. So it is what it is, though. Yeah.
Any other business?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn at 9:14 p.m.
With the.
Is there a second? Meeting adjourned.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Slam that gavel down.
Yeah.
Or adjourned.